Well, the Liberal Party is an absolute clown show. I'm not saying that. Senator Jacinta Nampijinpa-Price is saying that. She told 2GB radio listeners this morning that colleagues needed to stop leaking against one another.
Something has to be done. I've written to our leader about my concerns about backgrounding and about leaking. Enough's enough. It's just become, juvenile, this kind of conduct. I wrote to Susan Lee. I sent a letter to her yesterday morning outlining my concerns and asking for her leadership on this matter. It needs to be brought to attention in the party room. It's got to stop. We look like, there's been commentary on the fact that we look like a clown show.
Now, I'm a big fan of Senator Price, but I'm not sure leaking the contents of a letter you've written to Susan Lee about how colleagues should stop leaking is the best way to get colleagues to stop leaking. Joining me now is former New South Wales Treasurer Michael Costa and GXO Strategies Director Cameron Milner. Michael Costa, smart move by Senator Price today?
No, dumb move. Look, I agree with you that she's one of the assets of the coalition. And potentially a Prime Minister. And I know that doesn't say much given the group they've currently got, but she's got some real talents. The problem is she's too green and naive at the moment. She needs to spend some time, reflecting on what is an appropriate policy stance for her to take. She ought to drop the MAGA stuff in Australia. I think, Australia's a different country to the US and Britain. We're not going to end up with, a MAGA-type movement here because, firstly, we've got preferential voting and that forces us towards the centre. We don't have first past the post. But having said that, she's right about one thing. It is a clown show at the moment and it will remain so, for the next 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right, Michael. I mean, it is a clown show and she's spot on. But Cameron, she went on to criticise the government on a range of issues and God knows they deserve criticism. But what do you think made headlines today? Senator Price pointing out the government's secrecy on ISIS brides or pointing out that her party is a clown show?
Well, James, she gave the soundbite, didn't she? It was the clown show. So this is the problem. I mean, the Liberals have got to get over their grieving in private. They've got to get their reset in private and take on the Albanese government. Be an opposition, for goodness sake, and stop having these public debates in the forum, sucking up oxygen. Because every day the Liberals talk about themselves is another win for Albanese. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, speaking of clown shows, can we talk about Victoria and the Jacinta Allan government? The Victorian Premier has announced 2 months of free travel on weekend trains, trams and buses from December. And she's calling it, and I'm quoting, the biggest free public transport bonanza in Victoria ever. And it's all to say thank you to Victorians for putting up with years of disruption while the Metro Tunnel was being built. Michael Costa, I hate how politicians do this. It's not free. It'll cost $15 million and it's hardly a thank you when taxpayers are paying for it.
Absolutely. It's not a thank you at all. It's a bribe to try and get people to vote for her. Look, let's put this in a context. Victoria at the moment is heading for $200 billion of state debt. Its budget deficit's around $8 billion. Its interest payments are, about $20 million a day. And, public transport down there, less than 10% of the population uses it for its journeys to work. And not only that, the fare box only returns about 20%, as it does across the country. So this is going to be paid for by people that don't use public transport, and let's be frank about this, the debt is intergenerational, and all for some cheap vote buying because she feels the position's insecure. That is the real clown show, and I think just Jacinta Price should focus in on that. But you'll probably get away with it because people like free stuff.
I was going to say, Victorians will never fall for it. Cameron, if Jacinta Allan wants to spend $15 million saying thank you to Victorians, I'm trying to think of anything else that maybe she should be spending money on.
Well, she could, but this is actually a Premier who wants to win the next election. And the state Liberals are sitting down here thinking the election is going to be gifted to them somehow. Jacinta wants to win. She's got the work from home policy, which was incredibly popular with voters, maybe not employers. This free transport policy is going to be really popular with inner city people, where she's competing against the Greens as well. So this is a Premier who wants to win, and she'll do whatever it takes to win. And the Liberals can't sit there thinking it's going to be all taken for granted. They've got to work really hard if they're going to beat her, because she's out there being very popular and wanting to win.
Yeah, she is. I tell you what, she is a good politician. I'll give her that much. The PM has just agreed a new defence deal with his Singaporean counterpart. That means our two countries will share more of each other's ports and airspace. Michael, is this a good deal for Australia?
Oh, absolutely. And I think we should congratulate the Prime Minister for it, because, let's be fair here, I've criticised him for a range of things, but I think this is important. Same with the PNG deal. This is precisely what we should be doing to show our value to the US and the Western Alliance, that we can hold our backyard up as a model for cooperative protection of Western values. So, look, I congratulate the government for this. I think it's a great deal.
I note the deal with Singapore comes in the midst of a pretty major scandal relating to a Singapore-owned company, Optus. Here's the Singaporean PM.
I understand fully the anger, frustration and outrage at what has happened. Because if this were to have happened in Singapore, I would feel the same. So from that point of view, we understand the sentiments. I've extended my condolences to those impacted by the outage, including the family members and loved ones of those who lost their lives, which is tragic. And all I can do is to say, from a government's perspective, we expect our companies to act responsibly.
Cameron, the Coalition have been trying to pin some of the blame for the Optus debacle on Anika Wells, but I'm not sure they've made much headway, have they?
No, I don't think they have. I mean, Annika's obviously quite an experienced minister. It's her second term of being a minister. But the reality here is that Optus has done a terrible job. I mean, if the Prime Minister of Singapore can call out one of his own companies, Singtel, who owns Optus effectively, that it was a terrible thing, goodness me, the Australian CEO should not have a tin ear any longer. He should realise that the Australian public have hung up on him, and he should leave the job if he's got any human decency left.
Indeed. Well, the New South Wales government, let's talk about New South Wales for a second. They've commissioned at least 10 reports into what impact closing down coal-fired power stations will have on electricity prices, but they're steadfastly refusing to release those reports to the public. In a response to a Freedom of Information request, the Minns government said New South Wales Department of Climate Change, Energy and Environment and Water knocked back the release of 9 of the 10 documents on the grounds that they contained cabinet information which is exempt from disclosure under Freedom of Information. Michael, why is Chris Minns and New South Wales government so keen to keep this information secret, I wonder?
Because it's absolutely horrible. That's why. This is going to show what every independent analyst in this area has shown, that this transition to net zero and the removal of the power stations, and remember, Minns had to actually stump up money, and I congratulated him for it, to keep Araring open, because he knows what a disaster it will be. And I wouldn't be surprised that we have to stump up more money in New South Wales for that power station. But these reports show what every other analyst is that's independent and objective is showing. That is, that this is going to cost an arm and a leg, make our power unreliable, and worse still, it's going to have a massive impact on jobs in Australia. And I guarantee that's what those reports are showing.
Well,
they would have released it if it showed the opposite.
It's like a double hit, isn't it, Cameron, for people in New South Wales? We were promised cheaper energy, not getting that. We were promised transparency, not getting that either.
Well, no, that's right. And why can't governments just take us into their trust and talk to us about what the energy prices really are and what we as taxpayers are going to come up with as subsidies to keep coal-fired power open? To your point, Michael, we all know it. We all know power prices have gone up, unbelievably. We know coal-fired baseload power is still the cheapest in Australia and has modern fleets like the ones in Queensland and should be part of our power mix. No, I think government should come clean with voters and tell them what the real truth is. Even if these documents have gone to Cabinet once, they could be easily released by that same Cabinet.
Indeed. Michael Costa, Cameron Milner, always great to catch up. Thanks so much for coming on the program tonight.